Brought to you by River State Government, the treasure base of the nation.
Providing investment opportunities comes hand in hand with creating a conducive investment climate for both local and foreign investors. That being the case, it is impossible to discuss investment without looking at finance. In a bid to tackle this issue, the River State Government has issued a bond, as well as creating room for financial institutions to offer up funding as well.
We are making a conscious effort to first and foremost build back the economy. There's been a prolonged period where there were no investments in infrastructure, there were no effort to really modernize them. So that's our special and particular focus right now. But beyond that, we also realize that the more you modernize, the more you're able to attract additional investments. Quite recently, we've had a major announcement that the liquefied natural gas plant based in Bonny, River State, will be relocating back to Port Harcourt. So it's going to be based here, and like you know, it's a major exporter of liquefied natural gas. It accounts for 10% of global export of liquefied natural gas. So therefore, we believe that our effort ultimately has paid off in they trying to decide to come back. Now, the same vein, they will attract some of their vendors and their suppliers, and we're looking forward to not only building our economy back into shape from the perspective of oil and gas, but also hoping that we can begin to attract new investments. Recently, again, a Belgian group, SEAD Group, is about to sign a deal to manage our oil palm estate, which is the largest oil palm estate in West Africa. So we are very positive on some of the things that we've been doing.
The bond provides long-term funding. All right. There are several other things which they need to do to ensure that there is major transformation in River State. But what is good to know is that those things are being done. In the past, nobody would have thought of issuing a bond. People would have just gone to banks and said, can I take a bank loan and all of that, which is not the best way to finance long-term projects. But I think more and more, the administration and Rivers people are looking at more ingenious ways to actually transform this economy. We're working with the state government in a couple of areas. On the long-term capital which they're raising, we're working with them. We're supporting them on some other infrastructure projects, some of the road projects which they're doing in a very ingenious way. So we're working with them. But what we need to work on a bit more, even though we're doing it, but I see from the conference that the state is asking more and more and more for it. Is greater support for the small and medium-scale businesses. We already do it, but we're going to come up with more interesting schemes that will basically alleviate the suffering or provide greater employment for Rivers people through supporting SMEs.
River State is most famous for its oil and gas, but the delay in the finalizing of Nigeria's PIB has led to a dampening of investor enthusiasm within the sector. Nevertheless, opportunities still abound.
Spending 1.3 to 1.5 trillion naira a year to subsidize one commodity, petrol, isn't the best way to utilize our resources. Now, on the other end of the spectrum is those people who feel that if you remove the subsidy, then the cost of goods and services will increase so much that people who are vulnerable, if you like, economically, will be unable to get by. I think the answer to that is try and channel the subsidy, or whatever subsidy, to that target, and not a blanket subsidy to everyone. The ultimate solution, and that's what the minister talked about, is driving gas development so that the gas can be utilized, setting up processing plants. Our whole oil and gas industry was built for the export of oil and not for the utilization of gas. Now, to use gas, you have to collect it, gather it, process it, and then do whatever you want with it, either use it for domestic purposes, power plants, or export. And I think that's what's being done. So everything is being done, I think, to drive a gas utilization program.
River State is keen to see itself thrive and is pulling out all the stops to ensure that it is not only ranked among the top 3 commercial cities in Nigeria, but also as a world-class business center. The issue of security, which for years had tainted the state's reputation, is being successfully addressed.
The fact that Gordon Brown is here answers your question. 2-3 years ago, he wouldn't accept invitation to come to the Niger Delta. Would he? In fact, even if he did, the British government will not let him come. They won't. The fact that you're here, Mr. Vanderbeek, answers the question that you asked. 3 years ago, you wouldn't come. The fact that Nigerian liquefied natural gas with their expatriates have moved their headquarters to Port Harcourt also answers your question. But going beyond that is the fact that security crisis in Nigeria is not ideological. Including Boko Haram, it's not ideological. It's poverty, unemployment, and hunger. The state structures that have failed have also produced unemployment, and therefore will be the genesis for crime. So if the rich wanted to stop that, what they call insecurity, they needed to provide an opportunity for the poor to create their own livelihood, which is what we are now doing.
Although investment plays a fundamental role in the development of any state, the key to wealth creation and employment relies on education, a point that was driven home at the River State Investment Forum by former Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Gordon Brown.
The most important thing we have are the talents and the potential of young people in our country. And you talked about the rise in population in the country, but this will be the biggest workforce that of any continent Africa will have in 10, 15, 20 years' time. And we've got to show that this workforce has got the skills and the talents that enable them to do the job. Three things have got to be done. One is we've got to improve the level of teaching standards in our schools. This is true of Britain, it's true of Nigeria, but we must make sure that children can get the best teaching standards available. And we've got to draw on all the experience of teacher training that exists in every part of the world. And I believe that you are doing that in this state, drawing on work that is done in Britain in particular. But for teacher training and getting the best teachers as leaders in our schools, we've got to draw on the best experience elsewhere. The second thing I'm absolutely clear about is that we need better vocational training. We need to give young people the skills that are also relevant to the jobs that are going to be made available in the future. And sometimes the link between higher and further education and industry is not as strong as it should be. And we've learned that in Britain, and I think it's very important to learn it here. And I think the third thing we've got to remember is to leave a young person out of work for a year or 2 years or 3 years is to condemn them, in many cases, to a lifetime without work. So we've got to find a way of getting young people, even when they're unemployed at the moment, into relevant training or job.